Howdy folks, Ed here. Welcome back to Bullnose Garage. Imagine an axle tough enough for rugged off-road action but light enough for everyday driving. One that is so versatile and reliable you'll find it in your front and rear setups alike, from trucks to sports cars in both solid and independent configurations. It's been around for over 70 years and still ranks among the top choices in the 4x4 world. Meet the Dana 44. The Dana 44 isn't just another axle. It's a proven performer found in everything from classic Broncos to Jeep CJs and more. If you're into Bullnose Fords, any classic trucks, or off-roading in general, chances are this axle rings a bell. If not, stick around because we're covering everything you need to know. Even if you know this axle, there's a good chance you'll pick up something new. I'll also clear up the differences between the solid and independent suspension versions, as well as the front and rear axle setups. There's a lot to cover, so get comfortable.
Hello.
To start, let's clarify the Dana 44 family tree. The Dana 44 name actually covers a whole series of axles by the Dana Corporation dating back to the 1940s. It includes a solid front axle with an offset diff for 4x4 work, a solid rear axle with a center diff, and an independent front suspension using Ford's twin traction beam setup. This axle has been a top choice for off-roaders and classic truck owners for decades because it's tough, adaptable, and, this is important, easier to work on than most. The beauty of the Dana 44 is its adaptability across all kinds of vehicles. You'll find it in both front and rear setups in everything from Ford trucks to Jeep CJs. It's even seen action in some military vehicles and high-performance cars with an independent suspension setup. We're about to take a closer look at both the solid axle and twin traction beam or TTB versions, along with how each was used, especially in Ford's lineup. For those of you looking to source parts or find a solid donor axle, I'll share some charts later in the video showing which models and years came with the Dana 44. First up, we'll check out the solid axle version. Let's start with what makes the solid Dana 44 such a popular choice. For one, this axle was commonly paired with leaf springs in Ford's heavier duty setups, and it often used a high pinion design. Now, when I say high pinion, it means the pinion gear sits higher up in the axle housing than in the standard setup. This design offers a few advantages, especially for off-roading. First, it improves ground clearance, lifting the drive shaft angle to keep it safely clear of rocks, logs, and other tall obstacles. On top of that, this high pinion setup uses reverse cut gears, which provide extra strength in the forward direction. That makes it ideal for front axles where the torque is applied as you pull the vehicle forward. With the high pinion Dana 44, you get added strength, improved clearance, and a smoother drive shaft angle, especially helpful if your truck is lifted. The solid Dana 44 is designed to handle a wide range of vehicle setups. It functions well as either a front or rear axle, giving it flexibility across different builds. In classic Fords, it's typically found up front, but in lighter duty setups, you'll also see it used in the rear. Now, as a rear axle, it's not quite as beefy as a Dana 60 or a Ford 9-inch, but it's a solid choice and comparable to the 8.8 when you're looking to keep weight down and agility up without compromising strength. Now, Ford isn't the only one to use the Dana 44. Its versatility attracted other manufacturers like Chevrolet, Dodge, Jeep, International, and even some imports, making it one of the most widely used axles around. If you're curious about the range of models that came factory equipped with the 44, here's a chart with all the details. This is a great reference if you're thinking of sourcing parts or finding a donor vehicle. So let's talk specs. The solid Dana 44 typically comes with a 30 spline axle shaft, striking a good middle ground for strength and flexibility. Earlier versions sometimes had 19 or 27 splines, but the 30 spline is by far the most common for moderate duty work. If you're planning to go further off-road, then there's aftermarket options with 33 or even 35 splines. Just remember, if you go up in the spline count, you'll likely need a compatible differential carrier to handle those beefier shafts. The Dana 44 has an 8.5-inch ring gear. Now, it's not as large as what you'll find in the 9-inch or the Dana 60, but it's plenty strong for moderate off-roading and light towing. The Dana 44's gear ratios are also flexible, ranging from 3.07 to 1 to 4.56 to 1. Lower ratios like 410 and 456 are great for torque-heavy applications, while higher ratios like 355 are more fuel-efficient for highway driving. The Dana 44 uses a carrier brake around the 373 mark, so if you're planning to switch from a high to a low ratio, you'll need to change out the carrier. The gross axle weight rating for the Dana 44 ranges from 3,500 to 3,800 pounds, depending on the setup. While it doesn't match the brute strength of the Dana 60, the 44 is more than capable for medium-duty tasks in a 4x4 setup. The solid Dana 44 axle typically measures about 65 to 68 inches wide from flange to flange, with axle tubes between 2.75 and 3 inches in diameter. This width provides a good balance, keeping the front end light for off-road use without compromising durability. The solid Dana 44 axle itself weighs in around 250 to 300 pounds, making it significantly lighter than the Dana 60. Most Bullnose era trucks came equipped with ball joint knuckles in the Dana 44. Ball joints are easy to maintain and offer more precise steering, making them a solid choice for most setups. Some older versions feature kingpin knuckles for added durability, which off-roaders still appreciate for their strength. Last, here a quick note on fluid. The Dana 44 holds around 2 to 3 quarts of gear oil. Maintaining the oil level is crucial, especially for heavy off-roading, as it prevents the gears and bearings from overheating and wearing prematurely. If you're looking to beef up your solid Dana 44, a whole range of upgrades can take it from a decent axle to a serious off-road contender. Stock shafts work okay for light to moderate off-roading, but if you're planning to push it further, chromoly shafts are a great upgrade. You can also go for a thicker spline count, like 33 or even 35 splines, if you're aiming for that maximum strength. But like I said, keep in mind that a higher spline count often requires a compatible carrier, so plan accordingly if you're going to head that route. A locker upgrade makes a big difference in off-road traction. Several types of lockers are available, but selectable lockers, like those from ARB, are popular because you can engage them only when needed. Keep in mind that adding a locker increases stress on the axle shafts and U-joints, so upgrading your shafts is a smart move here. If you've got manual locking hubs, upgrading to a heavy-duty set like Warn hubs makes for a worthwhile investment. Manual hubs are typically stronger than automatic ones, which matters if you're running larger tires or adding extra load to the front end. If you're planning to take your truck over rougher trails, consider adding a truss or skid plate. A truss runs along the top of the axle, adding reinforcement to keep it from flexing under heavy use. And skid plates or reinforced diff covers give you a little bit of extra protection against rocks or trail debris. And finally, let's talk about ball joints and knuckles. Most Bullnose trucks with the Dana 44 come with ball joints, which work just fine for most setups. But if you're planning on larger tires or adding weight to the front end, like a winch bumper, upgrading to a heavy-duty ball joint or even reinforced knuckle is worth considering. This upgrade adds durability and keeps your steering nice and precise. So let's switch gears to the twin traction beam, or TTB Dana 44. It's a unique setup Ford introduced back in 1980. This version is entirely different from the solid axle, featuring an independent front suspension design. Rather than one continuous housing, the TTB has 2 beams that pivot independently from a central point. This design aimed to give trucks a smoother, more car-like ride on pavement without sacrificing off-road capability. Ford primarily used the TTB Dana 44 in the F-150 and Bronco models. If you're wondering which models came with the Dana 44 TTB axle, here's a quick reference chart. This should be especially useful if you're sourcing TTB-specific parts or looking for a donor vehicle. Ford designed this axle for folks who wanted a truck that can handle trails while still riding comfortably on the highway. While it's not as rugged as the solid axle version, it offers a strong balance between off-road capability and on-road comfort, making it popular in lighter-duty trucks. However, for serious off-roading, the TTB setup has its limitations. Its independent beams and pivot points wear faster under heavy use, and lifting the TTB can create challenging geometry issues. The TTB Dana 44 usually comes with coil springs instead of fleece springs, which helps create that smoother ride. With 2 pivot points, one at each beam, it requires regular maintenance, especially for frequent off-road use. These beams are typically made from stamped steel, which is lighter but less durable than a solid axle under extreme off-road conditions. Like its solid axle brother, the TTB Dana 44 uses 30 spline shafts. However, since it's not a single housing, each side includes a half shaft with U-joints that allow each beam to flex independently. The TTB Dana 44 generally offers similar gear ratios to the solid axle, ranging from 3.07 to 1 to 4.56 to 1. So you can choose based on whether you need torque for off-road or a higher ratio for on-road fuel efficiency. Lifting a TTB axle is trickier as the geometry can get thrown off even by modest lifts. This is one reason why some hardcore off-roaders eventually swap the TTB for a solid axle. The TTB's main strength is ride comfort. Its lighter front end provides a smoother ride on pavement and a big advantage if your truck spends a lot of time on the road. The TTB Dana 44 can be upgraded as well, although it has a unique set of options because of its independent design. First up, the heavy-duty U-joints and half shafts. Because the TTB relies on half shafts and U-joints for independent movement, a common upgrade here is stronger U-joints and heavy-duty half shafts. Stock parts work well under moderate use, but if you're heading off-road with larger tires or more power, upgrading these components can prevent early wear or breakage. Another key upgrade is bushings and pivot brackets. The TTB has a lot of moving parts, and one area that sees a lot of wear is the pivot points. Swapping in polyurethane bushings instead of the stock rubber ones and adding reinforced pivot brackets can make a big difference in stability. This helps reduce play and keeps everything lined up nicely. Another useful upgrade for TTB setups is adding a truss. Yep, you can add a truss to the TTB beams too. Say that 5 times fast. TTB beams. Truss kits strengthen the beams to prevent flexing under load, especially useful if you're running larger tires or taking the truck off-road regularly. A lot of TTB owners also go for extended radius arms. Stock length arms can sometimes cause binding when the suspension cycles over bumps, but extended arms let the suspension move more freely. They improve the suspension geometry if you're lifting the truck, helping with handling and stability on rough terrain. And speaking of lifts, lifting a TTB requires drop brackets to keep the pivot angles correct. TTB lift kits often include these drop brackets along with coil spring spacers or new coil springs altogether to keep the height right. Drop brackets are crucial for maintaining proper geometry. Without them, lifting a TTB can cause uneven joint wear and affect handling. Last but not least, just like with a solid axle, adding a locker can be a great upgrade if you're planning to take the TTB off-road. Just remember, the TTB's design is a little more complicated than a solid axle, so lockers can add some extra strain to the system. And that's the Dana 44 family in a nutshell. If you're looking at the solid axle for off-road durability or the TTB for a smoother ride, the Dana 44 has you covered either way. With the right upgrades, regular maintenance, and a bit of know-how, these axles are ready for just about anything, whether it's the trail, highway, or somewhere in between. So here's a little fun fact and something you might not expect right here at the end of the video. The Dana 44 wasn't just for trucks. Dana also created an independent rear suspension version specifically for sports cars. The IRS Dana 44 maintained the axle strength while being compact enough for performance-focused cars. This version appeared in some legendary rides, including the Chevy Corvette C3 from 1980 to 1982 and the C4 manuals from 85 to 96, the Dodge Viper, and even classic Jaguars like the E-Type and XJ. It's a testament to the versatility of the Dana 44 platform. There you go, guys. That's everything that I know, or pretend to know, about the Dana 44 series of axles by the Dana Corporation. Now, this can be a very confusing topic, especially for somebody who's new to axles or new to working on vehicles, because all these different vehicles are called Dana 44, and unless you know what you're looking for, it can be hard to find the right information. So just remember, you got a Dana 44 front axle that's solid, a Dana 44 front axle that's independent, and a Dana 44 rear axle, and they're all different. On top of that, they came in all different kind of vehicles, Fords and Dodge and Chevy, and we went over it, right? There's a lot of different vehicles you can find them in. So hopefully this video gave you some good background information. It was just a real quick overview, but hopefully you learned something. If you did, guys, give me a like, give me a subscribe. I really appreciate that. It helps me out a lot. If you have any questions, comments, concerns, gripes, internet ramblings, if I got something wrong, drop me a comment and let me know. Guys, thanks again so much for watching, and we will see you next time.
She's rough around the edges, but she's doing fine. Tinkering away, getting things to shine. That Bullnose Grandma's garage. She's considered divine. Thanks again for watching. We will see you next